Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? ¿Qué tal? Ahorita hoy un poco tarde, disculpen. Pero ya estamos con el evento en vivo de Flutter Forward. Están presentando ahí un par de... el video de presentación inicial. Y nada, acá les presento a Gonzalo, que es de Flutter Arequipa, junto con Juanjo. Y mi persona, que yo estoy de Flutter Lima o Perú e Ica, ¿no? Cuéntenos ahí, chicos, quién quiere empezar por ahí. ¿Cómo, qué esperan de este Flutter Forward? Aunque desde ayer ya sabemos más o menos qué cosas hay.
Ok, hola Pierre, hola Gonza. Muchas gracias por este espacio. Nada, feliz de poder comentar, de poder estar acá invadiendo un rato el canal de Flutter Perú. Como dijo Pierre, somos parte de Flutter Arequipa y nada, queríamos entrar a este evento para comentarlo, para verlo. En realidad es como que hay mucho hype. Incluso en la empresa en la cual estoy trabajando, hay como que mucho hype, toda la gente está viendo este evento, entonces está muy interesante. Hay diversas cosas que quiero que aparezcan, un poco de metaprogramming, que hablar algo de Impeller. Vi por ahí que lanzaron una aplicación similar al Photoboot, entonces va a estar muy interesante.
Chévere, ¿y tú, Gonza?
Hola chicos, muy buenos días a todos. Igual, un poco ansioso, bueno, súper emocionado por lo que va a salir. Justo ya están saliendo ya los chicos. No sé, por ahí estaba viendo que la gente quiere ver un Flutter 4. Están emocionados por eso y vamos a ver qué tal sale. Sí, y vamos a conversar acerca de lo que vamos a ver en el directo y nos dejan ahí sus preguntas. Tal vez ahí podamos ir respondiendo algunas partes. Y nada, eso chicos, vamos a ver el directo con ustedes, vamos a conversar un poco sobre lo que se viene, vamos a ver en qué nos puede ayudar eso en nuestras aplicaciones. Y con todos los ánimos.
Algo que me parece curioso, Pierre, es la primera edición. O sea, no sé por qué, o de repente ha habido ediciones pasadas, pero, o sea, me sorprendía que sea en África, ¿no? O sea, al inicio era como que dije,
Sí, justo inicialmente creo que hubo una, o ahorita están respondiendo esa pregunta por qué en África. Justo Teenage Nito mandó un tweet diciendo de que la transformación digital que estuvo existiendo en los últimos años en África, eh, o en específico en Kenia, generaban de que hacer un evento de la magnitud de Flutter allá incentive a que más personas usen la tecnología. Yo me acuerdo en 2018 o 2019 inicios, cuando yo empezaba en Flutter Perú, estuve en un grupo de personas africanas no eran Kenia, era Senegal, creo, y no me acuerdo qué otro país, donde recién empezaban a hacer sus comunidades de Flutter, pero ya tenían proyectos de Flutter desde esa época. Entonces, por ahí creo que también va la decisión de Google de irse a África. Ahora, ya había hecho de este lado de Latinoamérica, en México, creo que hay un evento. En Argentina, si no me equivoco, creo que hubo uno, pero muy, muy corto. Y bueno, de la magnitud de un evento principal, aún no ha habido de este lado del mundo, pero sí en Estados Unidos. Creo que es más, uno fue en Londres, creo, ahora último. No estoy seguro de dónde fue el Interact, por ejemplo. Pero ya, por ejemplo, los eventos que hace Flutter Vikingo son por ese lugar también. Algunos son por Europa Oriental, más que nada.
sí, yo también
Pero
había escuchado eso de que...
vamos a dejarlo a ver ahí a Tim Smith hablar un poco.
Ok, genial, ahí veamos qué nos traen.
Sí, sí.
A ver, lo voy a...
¿Tienes un poquito más de audio, por favor?
Sí, dame un segundo, ahí lo...
Flutter's free, it's open source. You don't have to pay for the tools. You don't have to guess what the code is doing. You can simply go and look at it. So, just over 4 years ago at Flutter Live, we introduced our vision to bring Flutter beyond mobile to desktop, web, and embedded. And last year, we completed that journey with desktop. So we now have production support for 6 platforms, Android and iOS on mobile, and then the web, Windows, macOS, Linux. And then on top of that, we support others building embedders. And lots of others have done so, including Samsung for Tizen, and Sony and Toyota for different kinds of embedded Linux. And of course, Flutter has grown tremendously over those years. Right now, over 5 million Flutter developers have experienced Flutter since Flutter 1.0. And over 700,000 apps have been launched to date using Flutter, from small apps, from entrepreneurs, to those with over 1 billion downloads. And as GitHub noted in their recent Octaverse, Flutter is one of the top 3 open source projects by contributors. So, thank you. So, let's talk about Flutter today, both the latest releases and the tools and the ecosystem that power them. Anda, why don't you come and tell us about them?
Thank you, Tim. Now, are you ready to hit Flutter upgrade? All right. I'm pleased to announce the availability of Flutter 3.7 and Dart 2.19, our latest stable releases.
Oh, lamentablemente no será Flutter 4, Gonza.
I'm going to talk about a few things that examples of what's new in Flutter. So we've enhanced Material 3 support, as you've heard already. And this includes migration of widgets such as radio buttons, sliders, and badges to Material 3. We have adaptive layouts, which enables your app's UI to automatically scale to look great on various screen sizes. We've got menu bars and cascading context menus, which are fully customizable to your app's needs. We've made Impeller, which is the graphics rendering engine that we've been building, available now as a preview for you to use in iOS versions of your app. And to help you with the iOS app release process, the tool now validates some of the settings that you need to be configured before you actually submit to the App Store. We've also made several updates to DevTools, the suite of performance and debugging tools for both Flutter and Dart. And this includes a complete redesign of the memory debugging tool. And we've added new features to analyze the memory usage of your app. We've only spent a short time talking about Flutter 3.7 and Dart 2.19 today, because we've got a lot more to tell you about. So go to the post and read all about the details. Or you can read fast here. All right, so Flutter is not the only tool that Google makes or provides for you to build apps with. Firebase is, which has more than 60% of Flutter developers using it today. And Firebase provides a suite of services such as hosting, analytics, crash reporting, authentication, and a lot more. But you may be wondering, how hard is it to use Firebase in an app? So Eric, who I've been partnered with on building a new app, is going to show us what it's like to add authentication to a Flutter app with Firebase.
Yep, we're going to do that right now. You talk through the app we're building, and I will get ready here.
Okay, great. So we're going to switch to Eric's screen here, so, no pressure.
Yes.
So what Eric has on his screen here while he's setting up is it's an app that allows a user to browse and play from a selection of songs. But right now, as you can see, there's this login page, right? And something's happening behind that. And the reason is what we actually want to do here is add personalization to the app itself so that the user sees a personalized list. And at some future date, even want to add recommendations. So the first step is we want to allow users to log into this app with their Google account. So Eric is going to, he'd just have to do things like create an API endpoint on our server to validate the credentials, create a token from that, call the API from the Flutter app, create the sign-in UI, and we haven't even gotten to the OAuth flow setup. I mean, it's a lot of steps. And I'm sure you all know auth is hard, right?
Yes.
I mean, all of this is just the pre-work before we get to the core part of what we really want to build, which is the personalization for the sign-in user. And that's why we're going to, in the next few minutes, use Firebase to do that, so that Eric can get back to working on what we're really excited about.
Yeah, so let's get started. So Firebase has an official SDK for every product for Flutter, and you can see here that I've already added the ones that we need to the project. And we've also already gone to firebase.google.com, created a project. So all that's left is to configure it, and then we can start writing code. So the first step is to just run Flutterfire configure. Make sure I spelled that right. Okay. And this will first ask us what project we want to use. We only have one, so it's an easy choice. And this is going to be a mobile app, so we'll just choose Android and iOS. And we are now registered with Firebase. And it's going to generate all the code we need so that whether we're running on iOS or Android, we know how to talk to Firebase, and that is all the configuration required. So what's next?
All right, so let's start writing the actual code. So in the main.dot file, which Eric is going to right now, we're going to import the Firebase SDK and the config files that we just generated. And then we initialize Firebase. And this code reads the configuration for whichever platform the app is running on, which in our case would either be iOS or Android.
Yeah, so I've added that code. As you can see, it's just a couple lines, and we will now hot restart so that Flutter knows that we've loaded a Firebase app, and we'll hot restart once again for good luck. And we're now ready to start implementing the auth itself.
Good call. So the app itself is already ready to handle the two states we're interested in here, which is either the user is logged in or they're logged out. And the UI we have pages to show for each of those states.
Yes, so in order to know what state we're in, we're going to get the information from Firebase. And we're going to use this built-in stream here provided by Firebase that tells us when someone signs in or signs out. So that's all we need that's the only business logic we really need. So what's next?
Okay, so now we need to do the actual sign-in UI and add a button. And for this, let's just use the built-in sign-in screen widget from Firebase.
All right, so I've added that here. You can see it's just one widget, the little bit of configuration, and I already hot reloaded. And you can see this nice UI is down here, provided for free from Firebase, so already made my life easier. What's next?
All right, so we've enabled the user to sign in with their Google account specifically here, but we could add other providers such as Apple for iOS devices, social sign-in, or plain old email and password with just a few more lines of code, correct?
Correct.
But let's go ahead with the Google account login for now.
Yeah, so we're going to sign in, and it might not look like much because we've used this app before, or Dash has, I reckon, because that's Dash's account. But we will prove to you that it did, in fact, sign in just a second.
All right, so we're almost done here. We have a signed-in user, and we could modify, what we want to do is modify the home screen for a personalized playlist. But for this demo today, we're going to start by the first step of personalizing the welcome message at the top there, that good morning message. Let's do that, Eric.
Yeah, so as you can see, I've added this line right here to get the current user. That'll be the user that's just logged in. And that is, once again, all of the business logic it takes. So now we'll update the good morning message to say good morning to the current user. Remove this because it's no longer a constant value. And finally, we will add the user avatar. This is a widget provided by Firebase that should display the profile picture of the currently logged in user. So we'll now see if this works. And look at that. There's Dash. It says the name. And now I never have to write auth again, which makes me very happy because Firebase does it for me.
Perfect.
We're done here? All right.
Yeah, we're done here. Thank you, Eric. So using Firebase here, as you can see, saved us a ton of time on the authorization part of it. And now we can go and work on the real stuff we're excited about, which is personalizing this app for our users. So developers approach building apps in different ways. Some prefer starting with the code, and some prefer a more visual approach. So I want to welcome Alex and Abel to the stage, who are the founders of Flutter Forward, to tell me about a tool for building visually.
What up, Nairobi? How we feeling?
Hi, I'm Alex.
I'm Abel.
and we're the co-founders of Flutter Flow. We're so excited to be back at a Flutter event.
And for me personally, I grew up just next door in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And to be presenting here at Flutter's conference live in Nairobi is so special. So huge thank you to the Flutter team for having us. I hope you're ready. We have some exciting stuff to show you. So with Flutter Flow, what you see is what you code. Flutter Flow is an online platform that helps you build and deploy Flutter apps faster than ever before. It comes pre-integrated with Firebase, Google Maps, RESTful APIs, and more. We'll show you what we mean. We're going to build a very simple 2-page application live using the NASA APIs, and Alex will explain what's going on as I build.
All right. So we're going to get set up here. And as you can see, we've already built the UI for one of our pages. And you can see the layout over here on the left-hand side in the widget tree. But right now, this is just UI. And we want to connect this to some real live data. And that's going to come from the NASA Astronomy Picture of the Day API, which you can see we've already configured here, along with the NASA image search API. And we've also predefined some outputs from our API responses. So going back to the UI builder, the first thing we need to do is add a backend query to our page. And that's going to be an API call, and specifically from the NASA Picture of the Day API. Cool. So now all we need to do is set various widgets from our data in our response. So Abel is going to set the title, date, description, and background image on this page. And the cool thing about Flutter Flow is that as we're making these changes, we're actually producing clean Flutter code, which you can always view or export. All right, so now we're just going to set the background image of this container. Right now it's an asset, but we're going to make it a network, and we'll make it come from the URL of the response. Sweet. That's it. So now we're down to check it out. So this is the current state of our app before our changes. And we're just going to hot restart here. And yeah, what we have here is a live Flutter debug session hosted in Flutter Flow.
So while it's loading here, quick fun fact, there are over 200 million lines of code exported to GitHub straight from Flutter Flow.
Yeah.
And there you have it.
All right, and there we have it. The pillars of creation. Cool. All right, so back in our UI builder, it's time to build our second page, which is going to be a search page using the NASA image search API. So we'll start by copying over the content of our first page, and then just removing all the stuff that we don't really need. Next, we'll add a nifty little search bar from one of many pre-built Flutter Flow templates. And let's actually add a little gradient here just for fun. Nice, nice. Okay. So next we'll add a stagger, which is going to display our images from the API in a nice, cool layout. And then from there, we'll add an image, which will serve as our template image for our images. And we'll stylize this a little bit. And then we'll just add a quick little animation, a little fade in, just to you know, make it pop. There we go. Okay. So now we need to add a backend query to our staggered view. And this time it'll come from the NASA image search API. But this time we need to set a parameter, which is the search term. So in Flutter Flow, you can set values from a variable. And in this case, we'll set the variable from the text field's value. In this case, this text field, what we've done here is actually configured it so that it updates the page on every time the user types, but with a 1-second delay, so it's not on every single keystroke. Next, Abel's going to generate the children of this staggered view dynamically from the image URL's response, which we can see here. And now we get the image URL of this from its respective item in the results. Nice. Okay, so we're ready to check out our app. So we can go back here and hot restart.
Cool. Another fun fact while this is loading. There have been over 5,000 apps deployed to the App Store and Play Store thanks to our integration with CodeMagic. So shout out to CodeMagic.
Shout out to CodeMagic. All right, so ready to go to our search page. And let's search for something cool and visual, like a supernova. Okay. And there you have it. So just like that, we get to witness the second most powerful force of nature in the known universe, after my grandma. Okay, so back in the UI builder, you'll notice that our first page is actually just in English, right? But often we want to serve an international audience. So we'll go to our languages tab, and we'll add a few different languages. So we'll start with English, because that's what it's based in. But of course, we have to add Swahili. And Abel's going to add a few different languages as well.
One more.
Yeah. All right. So we'll set our base language, which was English, and then we'll hit the Google Translate button, which will use the Google Translate API to automatically translate all of the text within our application in just a few seconds. Hopefully just a few seconds. And so we can see our translations here, and obviously modify them to our liking later on. So now back in the UI builder, let's see what it looks like in some different languages.
A mí eso del Flutter Flow, está bueno.
¿Así? Yo he trabajado proyectos justo con una persona que hizo su proyecto en Flutter Flow y en realidad tuve que hacerle una función que no podía hacer, o sea, como que un módulo o algo que él no podía hacer con Flutter Flow, pero sí es muy interesante. Lo único que me estresa a mí es el reload, o sea, o cargar, porque a veces es como que se cae. O sea, de repente fue algo muy específico mío, pero era como que tardaba mucho tiempo cargando, haciendo hot reload. Bueno, no sé si es hot reload o volviendo a cargar la aplicación o compilando. Eso era un poco lo que me desanimaba, porque es como que como Flutter Devs estamos como que acostumbrados a hacer un hot restart y verlo automáticamente. Entonces es un poco estresante.
Y cuando lo has trabajado ya tenía ya eso de los idiomas.
No, lo de los idiomas es algo nuevo. Pero sí, lo demás sí, ¿no? O sea, es como que poder arrastrar, o sea, Flutter Flow ya lleva un buen tiempo, ¿no? Y es como que ya una herramienta que muchos utilizan para sacar herramientas para producción. ¿Es bueno el Flutter Flow, el trabajo colaborativo? Yo diría que sí. Yo diría que... no, miento. Hay una parte, especialmente con el tema de las funciones, creo que cuando yo lo trabajé no te dejaba tener dos developers trabajando al mismo tiempo. Era como que un poco raro, porque habían como que dos developers y queríamos trabajar sobre la misma función o algo así. No podíamos, te bloqueaba, no puedes. Sí, estaban presentando Flutter 3.7. A ver, ahí le subo un poquito para escuchar.
But sometimes translating that vision to code takes multiple iterations and back and forth with your development team, which is really tedious to tweak things and get it just right. To help solve this, there are various packages that exist today on pub.dev that essentially create a library of your app's UI pieces. Let's focus on one of these today, Widgetbook. So let's open up Widgetbook. And we'll take a look in this clip here. On the left-hand side, we can see all the different components of the app. Clicking on one of them, you can adjust what it looks like and see what it looks like in the middle view here. And on the right, you have all these settings that you can see how it looks. In this case, you can play with the theme right now. You can go on and change your locale and so many other things. And this is great to test things out and make sure everything is working as planned. But with Widgetbook Cloud, we can go a step further. So by integrating with CI/CD tools and giving designers a complete platform to review changes. Now, as a developer, I'll create a commit to update the app. And with a GitHub action, Widgetbook will automatically create an updated, hosted library. As a developer, you can then send that link over to the designer for review. All right, now I've got the link as a designer. And I'm going to click on it, as you can see here. And in this next view of Widgetbook, you can open up the link. And you can see even better, we've now got with Widgetbook's new Figma integration, you have the design on the left. And you have the new implementation on the right. And as before, you can use the same set of knobs and features to look at the app. And comment, or in this case, we accept it.
Wow, para mí eso está muy, muy interesante, ¿eh?
Ay, el toque se puede
So
ver
that's
ahí,
widget
¿no?
book. There's lots more to
Claro.
talk about and see about it, so you can check it out.
Claro, porque el proceso entre validar diseño y
Now,
desarrollo es como que
you
un
might be
poco tedioso,
wondering
¿no?
what
Si no tienes
apps you
algo como
can
que de
build
DevOps
with
muy
Flutter and
acelerado.
the tools, some of which
Nosotros en
So let's
Polonia
hear
hacíamos
how
algo
Flutter is
como que
helping
creábamos,
developers
levantamos un
mobile
Flutter
teams
web
to build a
aislado de,
community
de cada PR y
using
enviábamos ese
Flutter.
link automáticamente al grupo de diseño y ellos lo validaban. Pero siento que esto es un poco más interesante porque tienes el diseño y tienes ahí también la pantalla e incluso tienes para probarlo, ¿no? Lo cual está genial.
Sí, eso está bueno, o sea, tener los dos al mismo tiempo, ¿no?
Ahora ahí le subo un poquito.
孤身奋战或与队友合作，努力与对手周旋，幸存到最后，赢得胜利。在游戏最初的策划阶段，我们就计划为玩家打造游戏中的社区体验。我们注意到玩家希望有更多的机会在游戏中分享自己的游戏体验，特别是高人气和达人玩家们希望能有更多的机会与更多的粉丝建立联系，让自己的精彩内容得到更广泛的传播。
我们是比较小的团队，所以我们一直致力于寻找任何可以提高效率的新技术。2020年下半年，我们在为游戏新模块寻找解决方案时，就开始探索新的跨平台框架了。因为我们需要高效地覆盖安卓和 iOS 平台，我们测试了很多解决方案，都存在这样那样的性质，但这些性质在 Flutter 中则不存在。例如，即使我们引入复杂的业务逻辑后 ，Flutter 的性能表现一样十分优秀，达到了我们认为投产所需的水平。
另外，由于我们在 Java、Kotlin、Objective-C 方面有着坚实的基础，让大词语言的学习成本很低。因此，在我们通过概念验证阶段之后，便决定在新模块中使用 Flutter。另一个打动我们的是 ，Flutter 可以很好的和现有的游戏进行整合，基本上照着官方文档说明操作就行，用不了多少时间。
自从采用 Flutter 之后，我们发现可以将承担的工作量减少80%，工作量的大幅降低，得益于使用 Flutter 之后，我们只需要写一次代码就好，这样我们就不用为2个不同的平台写2次相同的功能。单一的代码库有助于保证安卓和 iOS 平台之间逻辑的一致性。游戏中的社区模块一直很受用户欢迎。我们的统计数据表明，每月有近1000万玩家使用游戏中的社区模块，分享自己的屏幕录像等内容。
我们认为 Flutter 是首个真正的移动跨平台框架，它能为开发者节省大量的编程时间，同时也为公司降低成本。我们十分愿意在未来的新场景、新用例中使用 Flutter。PUBG
Mobile 将继续精雕细琢，尽力地为玩家们带来更好的服务和游戏体验。
Está interesante. Justo algo que me agradó fue la parte de que están integrando a Flutter algo nativo, ¿no? Porque es básicamente el procedimiento que tienen algunas empresas.
And Flutter to build apps that work across mobile, web, and desktop. Collectively, hundreds of millions of people around the world use these apps. One of these apps is Google Classroom, which is used by students across the world. So let's hear from Sophie and Kenichi from that team about how Flutter has helped their team.
Google Classroom brings learning tools together in a central destination and empowers teaching and learning from anywhere. Classroom saw exponential growth in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, increasing from 40 million to more than 150 million students, teachers, and learning educators around the world, using it across Android, iOS, and the web. This led to an increasingly diverse user base, with mobile becoming an even more important platform.
In the past, developing mobile features for Classroom required a lot of overhead to maintain consistency between platforms. The high volume of code also resulted in high tech debt and low code health. After learning how the GPay team was able to increase velocity with Flutter, we decided to use it for Classroom. And we're so glad we did, as moving to Flutter has fixed a lot of our issues on mobile. We're now sharing 98% of our mobile code, so we no longer have to prioritize one platform over another. We can also share complex business logic between operating systems. With Flutter, we reduced the code size by 66% for the same functionality. This means less bugs unique to each platform and less tech debt in the future. And using Hot Reload reduced incremental build time from minutes to seconds, allowing us to save an entire week of work per engineer per quarter. All of this makes our team more productive and creates a better user experience for our users.
At Classroom, we create tools that are simple to use and can be adjusted to fit students' unique learning styles. A new feature we recently launched on the web, Practice Sets, enables teachers to use their existing teaching content to create interactive assignments. Practice Sets give students real-time feedback, instant validation when they get an answer correct, and in-the-moment support when they need it.
Additionally, students can handwrite or draw using digital ink as they work through practice set problems. Developing deep integration with the digital stylus modality in the browser required us to leverage a WebGL-based graphics canvas to represent ink strokes and build custom infrastructure to unlock capabilities that we needed to make the feature feasible. Flutter so beautifully solved aspects we found challenging, like Skia Canvas Kit, widgets, accessibility, and animations, to name but a few. Practice sets are now in beta, and we received tons of positive feedback from engaged and excited educators.
Our tools work together to transform teaching and learning so every student and educator can pursue their personal potential. We're so excited to develop more features for Classroom that save teachers time and create enriching learning experiences for students.
So cool. I'm really excited about that. Okay, so let's talk about the forward part. What's coming next? With this event, we want to give you some sneak previews of a lot of different features that aren't yet stable quality, but represent work in progress. Because we don't want just you to buy into Flutter for what we have today, but also based on where we're going. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to show you a number of different demos of things that we're working on for Flutter and Dart. And they fall into 4 main categories: breakthrough graphics performance, delivering seamless integration with the underlying platform, whether it's web, mobile, or desktop, bringing support early to new and emerging architectures, and continuing our focus on developer productivity. So we're going to start with the language that powers Flutter, which is, of course, Dart. So I'd like to invite Michael to tell you what we're working on there. Knock it out.
Presentado con aplausos.
Thanks, Tim. Our vision for Dart is to enable you to create the highest quality apps with leading productivity on any platform your customers care about. And to do just that,
Hola,
I am
Fran.
happy to
Bienvenida.
announce Dart 3
Hola.
Alpha.
Wait, what? What 3A?
This is the first
¿Se podía
release,
eso?
first
3
preview
Alpha.
of our next major release, and I have
Ah,
a few
okay.
things I would like to show you today. We have new language features. We have the completion of our multi-year
Bueno,
journey
teniendo eso,
to sound all safety.
ya es más
Oh, and
interesante
we've
que haya un
expanded on our
posible
already
Flutter 4
comprehensive platform
en un
support.
mediano
No,
corto
no,
plazo.
el Flutter 4 va a ser para el Google
Impeller.
I.O.
All right.
Ayer hicieron el release.
Claro, por eso.
I will start
Para
with
ello.
records and patterns. These are large new language features focused on making the Dart language more expressive and better suited for working
Estoy
with
esperando a
structured
este
data.
señor por 5 años.
But in F-Talk, let's look at some codes. Here is a Dart2 function that takes a place and returns a location. Currently, to return both latitude and longitude, we put both values into a list. That means over here on the caller side, we need to read out the latitude and longitude manually using positional access. Let's hope we don't get those pesky indexes wrong. To work around that, we could also define a new location class. This makes it a lot easier to get latitude and longitude out in a type-safe way. But it's really verbose to have to name and define some class just to bundle up 2 integers. To solve this, Dart 3 adds a new type of built-in collection called records. As you can see, a record looks sort of like a list row, but you can use it in code with parentheses instead of the square brackets. And notice, here we're using it to return a pair of 2 integers, giving you multiple return types, which I know many of you have asked for a really long time.
Yo tenía que crear tuplas para hacer eso.
No son tuplas.
All right, over on the
No son
caller
tuplas.
side, we
Tiene
now get
sabor a
back
tupla,
the
pero
pair of
realmente es un
integers.
record type,
And
donde
to
tiene
read out both
literalmente
the
campo
latitude
0,
and
campo 1.
longitude,
Es una
we now
clase.
again use positional
Es como cuando
access.
tú tienes una lista. Tú
I
tienes la clase
personally
lista,
really like
pero
the
sintácticamente
syntax
la puedes escribir con
for
corchetes sin necesidad de
defining the
poner
record
links al inicio.
up here on our get location function.
Mm.
But let's see if we can get away from the positional access when we read out the elements. And to do that, we're adding patterns and pattern matching. This can be used to destructure existing structural data back into the individual elements. As you can see, the highlighted codes is matching against the pair coming back from get location. And very easily, we can read out latitude and longitude, and then just go ahead and use them. If you want to, you can also discard one of the fields using the underscore pattern. Sometimes you might want to just update existing variables instead of binding new ones. In that case, you can, of course, do that too. But they can also be used on much more complex data structures. Here's an example using a class hierarchy of shapes. Let's say we now need to do something like calculate the area of the shape. Then, of course, again, we can use pattern matching in a switch statement. This time, we're switching on the type of the shape. And inside each of the branches, we can go ahead and use an extractor pattern. This allows us to read out the unique fields of each type. In this case, we're reading out the length of the square and the radius of the circle. And with that, it is trivial to complete the bodies.
Ahí yo tengo una duda. Si agregas, la ventaja de los menús actuales es que si tú agregas un nuevo caso, el linter te dice que en los switch hay que agregarle un nuevo caso. En esta implementación, ¿lo hará?
No estoy seguro.
No veo ningún indicador que lo lea. Y en la documentación que han ido preparando, tampoco lo he encontrado. Sería cuestión de probar en el alfa.
Sometimes, to make progress in a product, it is insufficient to simply add features. You know, sometimes you have to be willing and go back and revisit your earlier assumptions about existing features. The Dart team has been on such a journey for the past 7 years to rework the Dart type system. I personally joined the Dart team nearly 7 years ago, which was around the time of Dart version 1.11. And back then, Dart had a novel, but honestly put, also quite confusing type system. Types were merely annotations, and if you ignored the optional warnings from the analyzer, you could entirely bypass the type system. Here we are assigning a string to something declared to be an integer. What would happen? You would get catastrophic exceptions when your app ran in production. In 2018, we launched Dart 2, featuring a new strong type system. This turned Dart 1's exceptions after deployment into development time errors. In Dart 2.12, we took another big step. We added sound null safety, which allowed you to catch null errors during development. This avoided a whole class of issues often seen in production apps. In Dart 3, the major version increment signals the completion of this multi-year journey. Your Dart code now always runs with sound null safety, and you will no longer be able to run without it. This makes Dart easier to understand. All Dart code now runs in a single mode. And thanks to the great work by the Dart community, that's all of you, we think we're ready for this change. For packages on pub.dev, 98% of the top 1,000 packages have already migrated. Thank you.
Justo viendo esto, recuerdo que, o sea, no sé si es que hay algo como en un safety que sea para verificar que una lista no esté vacía. En un código que recibí había muchos errores porque trataban de acceder, o sea, ponían punto first una lista que estaba vacía y tiraba excepciones. No sé si es que sepan si hay algo para eso.
Punto first, ¿a qué objeto?
A ver. O sea, tenía una lista vacía, o sea, ponte una lista que en un punto obviamente iba a tener información, pero digamos que el backend te tiraba algo vacío, le dabas punto first.
Es el error en runtime.
Claro, o sea, es como que yo digo, me gustaría como que en código saber, como que un safety, ¿no? Como que, oye, esto puede tirar error, porque en realidad es como que cualquier cosa con un punto first puede tirar un error.
Here's an example. This is a small function
That takes an argument. Sería interesante tener algo así, ¿no?
Entonces, que la idea del pattern matching con esto para mí es que puedes retornar un objeto tipo result. O sea, ya existen en paquetes Flutter con implementación y de hecho yo claro con uno y la implementación dentro tiene muchas cosas porque no teníamos esto de las tuplas, el pattern matching. Ahora va a ser más fácil.
And in Dart 3, sound all softy everywhere, we're down to 3 instructions. And this was just a simple function call. Imagine a large real-world program with thousands of lines of Dart code. It adds up to a huge change. All right, let's get to my third and last theme, portability. And again, this is all about enabling you to deliver apps to all the platforms your customers care about. Dart's high portability has already enabled Flutter apps to target the 5 major operating systems and the web. And on these platforms, our native compilers support a wide range of processor architectures, including ARM and Intel in 32-bit and 64-bit architectures. On the web, we currently compile to JavaScript, where we use our enterprise-class compiler that powers some of the largest web apps at Google. New in Dart 3 is experimental support for the emerging WebAssembly standard.
Perfect.
And this is just a teaser. Tim will tell you everything about that in a second. But there's more. We are also adding support for the emergent instruction standard called RISC-V. This is uniquely an open source standard with no licensing fees. It enables innovation and a low price point. And Dart 3 has a preview of RISC-V support so that we are prepared for this future. But let's check it out in practice.
Mira.
All right, this is a RISC-V prototyping device. I actually built this device in my hotel room last night from a box of components. It's very, it's very early, so let's hope it lasts for the next little bit. We are running Linux. You're looking at the terminal, and I wrote a small Dart terminal app, and we've compiled it to an executable, and I shall attempt to run it. And here we go. It's running smoothly. This, and the point of this demo is, this really it's a very small device. It's running a tiny 1 gigahertz single core processor. And as you can see, we're getting really good speed through Dart. And while RISC-V is still very much an emerging standard, I think it has a ton of promise across a range of devices, from embedded to mobile and elsewhere. All right. So that is a glimpse of the work we're doing in Dart 3. We have new language features like records and patterns. We have full sound null safety everywhere, and expanded portability to new platforms like WebAssembly and RISC-V. I am personally super excited about the future of Dart, and I hope you are too.
All right, so that's Dart. Now let's turn to some of what we're working on for Flutter itself. And we're going to start with the web. Yeah. Today's web is amazing. You know, it's really wild when you think about it. What started about 30 years ago as a simple format for hypertext has kind of somehow transformed into the most pervasive computing platform ever built. And we're all used to today's web apps being built with JavaScript and the DOM or the document object model. But there are some new exciting standards emerging. For example, Canvas, which lets you bypass the DOM and paint your pixels directly to the screen. Or WebAssembly, as Michael mentioned, which lets you target the web platform from languages other than JavaScript. So I want to be clear with you. The implementation of Flutter we're building for the web is explicitly not designed to be a general purpose web framework. We're not building another DOM-based web framework like Angular or Vue or React, because they fill that space already very well. Instead, we built Flutter to be the first web framework that's architecturally designed around these new standards. If you're targeting Canvas, we think Flutter can offer you some really useful primitives like widgets and animations and so on. And a great example of this is Rive. Rive is rapidly becoming one of the most popular ways to build interactive graphics, whether you're targeting Flutter or another platform. And for Rive, the editor itself is written in Flutter on the web. And in fact, it was one of the first things to be built with the web on Flutter. And apps like this, with their complex visual needs and their complex UI needs, are really hard to do without a framework like Flutter. So Flutter's web support is still pretty new. And over the last year, we've primarily been focused on making Flutter on the web faster and smaller so that it starts quickly and gets you where you need to be. We've done improvements to CanvasKit to reduce its size. We've reduced how much work it takes to bring fonts in. We've introduced deferred loading to let you control which things are loaded. And we've improved the concurrency of the loading process. And I want to show you a slide that demonstrates this in action. So this is a slide that shows how we've been working, even since the 3.7 release we're shipping today, to improve the speed of loading the initial page. And what you can see here is we've done work on the current master channel and with a new custom CanvasKit that reduces the amount of time a page takes to load using Flutter by 40%. And we're not done. So let's look forward, and I want to share with you 3 different examples of how we're investing on the web. And we're going to start with WebAssembly, which Michael mentioned earlier on. So I'm going to walk over, and this is my favorite bit. I get to do a demo myself. And I'm going to go over to the demo machine here, the Dragonfly machine. This is a Chromebook from Hewlett-Packard. And if we can switch over to the demo machine here, hopefully you'll be able to see. Yeah, there we go. This is Chrome Canary. So this, I said, we're sort of really at the cutting edge here. Chrome Canary. And we're using here some experimental flags. In fact, if I go to the Chrome flags, you'll be able to see this in action. Let's quickly go here. And you can see that we've turned on a whole bunch of super experimental flags here. And what I'm running here is the Flutter counter app, as you may recognize it from the past. But this version of the Flutter web app is not using JavaScript. In fact, if I go into the dev tools and I make that a little bit bigger, you can see that what we've got here is, instead of the usual sort of main.dart.js, which is normally the big thing that contains everything, we've got main.dart.wasm. And this is the compiled version of this code to WebAssembly. Adding to the complexity of this, WebAssembly has been around for a little while, but the bit that is new is WebAssembly GC, which is a new in-development standard for garbage-collected languages. And Flutter is one of the very first garbage-collected languages to support this extension to the WebAssembly standard when it comes out. So now we get all the benefits of WebAssembly from a loading perspective in terms of performance, and we also get the ability to go and interoperate with other languages that are compiled to WebAssembly. So that's coming soon, support for compiling to WebAssembly from Flutter in the web. What do you think? I want to show a second thing, which is called element embedding. And this is another shift of work that we're doing, another piece that we're doing to improve the quality of the web experience with Flutter. So again, if we go back to the demo machine here, in the past, when you have built Flutter web applications, typically you've taken over the entire screen. Occasionally, you might choose to put it in an iframe and integrate it within the rest of the web app. But the problem with that is you're in a sandbox. It's tough to get out of that and communicate backwards and forwards with different parts of the application. Something that we've been working on here enables you to take Dart and Flutter and compile it and put it in a div as a web component, so it can integrate deeply with the rest of the platform. So I'm going to show you this as well. I'm just going to show you in DevTools. You can see here what we've got. This is just regular HTML page that we've got here. You can see all these buttons here. They're all actually just HTML buttons on the left-hand side here. And what I've got here is this single div here, which is the div target for the Flutter. And that's where the Flutter component is going to be loaded. So I'm going to get rid of the DevTools for a moment. And this is the div here. And you can see that through a bit of JavaScript code, we've filled that with the Flutter counter application. So now you can see that I can do the usual things. This is the traditional Flutter counter app. But look, on the left-hand side, what you're seeing here, this is JavaScript. This is a JavaScript text box. And you see that as I continue to increment the button on the Flutter side, that state can be pushed across to the JavaScript side. Better still, I can go the other way as well. So I can hit the increment button on the JavaScript side and affect the state in Flutter.
Esto es interesante porque había muchos proyectos que necesitaba eso y era como que solamente me ofrecía hacer algo en Flutter y que quede ahí, no como que interoperar.
So I could add a shadow effect. That's kind of nice. Or I could resize it in real time. Or I could even switch it into a device mode and skew it.
Sí, está muy bueno. Más mercado donde apuntar como Flutter Devs.
Check that out. But it doesn't just go there, because I can also flip it across. I can go into something like a text field. And these are things that, are often quite difficult to implement. But even in this text field mode, if I switch again back into that device mode, you can see that the text field still works. I can do selection with skews. That's all pretty good. Let's switch it up again a little bit more. Let's make it back into landscape mode. And let's add a spin. Oh, check that out. Okay, but this is live, right? So I can still go backwards and forwards here. And I can select text, and I can it gets quite challenging when I'm doing it in reverse. I can type into it, and it's still working. This is just like a text field in CSS with CSS effects. How about... How about for a bit more fun, I'll just add a CSS mirror effect. So now what you're seeing here is the CSS reflecting of the Dart code here. So again, I can continue to make these changes, and you can see it reflected at the back at the bottom. What do you think? So we think this is going to really change how people use Flutter, because now any web app can use a Flutter to add interactive graphics, to do the kinds of things with Canvas that you might want to be doing. And you're just looking for a good web framework to do rich Canvas work. So that's element embedding. I want to show you one third demo of the web, and I think you're going to like this one too. Pixel shaders are a low-level function that you can run locally on the GPU that give you a lot of power for doing hardware-accelerated graphic effects. You can do things like blurs and glows. You can invert pixels. And a pixel shader runs on every pixel that's about to be rendered on the screen and lets you make changes to it. We've had this for a little while on Flutter for mobile, but now, with the work that we're doing here, again, very experimental, very unstable, we're bringing it to the web. So if I can go back to my demo machine, this is a pixel shader demo that Eric Gomez wrote. And what you see here is just a very simple example of pixel shaders at work. There's our famous Dash, and with this slider, I can change how pixelated she is. And this is exactly the same code
Esto lo he visto en Twitter antes.
Mobile, but we've just
No,
taken it
pero
and
es que
transformed
está diciendo
it.
que que se hace ahora con GPU.
Compiled it for the
Una
web.
cosa es
So now I
hacerlo
can do all these kind of
en
really
GPU.
crazy cool effects, like adding this kind of pointillism.
No, o sea, pero lo vi en Twitter y también era como que con shaders, pero creo que era en mobile. No sé si en web.
Pixel shaders. So again, the power available with Flutter to do these high-end graphics effects is now available on the web. So again, I want to make very clear, all these things that I'm showing you here, they're super early. We're not committing when we'll ship them. This is just a proof of concept, but they give you an idea of where we're going and where we're taking the web. So hopefully that gives you some exciting things to look forward to on the web. But let's now talk about mobile. So I'm going to hand over to Leah to talk about that.
Good job. All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone. So let's turn back to Flutter's foundation, mobile. So mobile is Flutter's most mature product offering, right? But over the past year, we've continued to add lots of exciting new features. We've been improving text input. We've been adding support for foldable devices and variable refresh rate. We've been simplifying release processes, enhancing our developer tooling, and improving performance, just to name a few. But now looking forward, mobile continues to be a huge priority for our team. So first, let's talk about how we can help mobile developers start building high-quality production apps faster. All right, let's consider a news app. I think we can all agree that more and more people are reading news on their phone. But for developers, that means building navigation and search, authentication, ad integrations, profiles and subscriptions, notifications. It's a lot of work. So to help with this, we're excited to announce that the first version of Flutter's News Toolkit is now available for everyone. Maybe you've already heard a little bit about it, but it includes sample code for all the things that I just mentioned, while also incorporating best practices from Google's News Initiative. And better yet, some of our early adopters have said that it reduced their time by up to 80%. All right, so let's hear from some of the publishers that are already using it.
Estes brand is the largest digital media publisher in Morocco and the most popular trilingual news website in the country, with 20 million monthly visitors to our properties on the web and over 30 million followers on social media. Since 2007, our goal has been to be the central source of Moroccan news, both for people living in Morocco and for Moroccans living abroad.
We launched both spots in October 2021, so we are very much an early stage startup. We are a Lagos-based Nigeria-centric sport media company dedicated to providing the best content about homegrown Nigerian athletes and athletes of Nigerian origin in all sports.
The Standard is a multimedia company that is based in Kenya. We've invested heavily in print, broadcast, and digital. On digital, we have a number of websites and mobile apps. Mobile apps are very important for us. Because, you know, we're looking at how best can we serve our customers. And almost 80% of our users are on mobile.
Our French and Arabic mobile apps drive double the engagement that their respective websites do and drive 50% of our revenues. We knew we needed to create an engaging and captivating mobile app experience for our English website as well.
We learned about the Flutter News Toolkit through our partnership with Google. We worked closely with the Flutter and Google News Initiative teams to design and develop a beautiful app that deeply incorporates the best of Google's consumer product and design insights to ensure that we were delivering an incredible experience to our end users.
Typically, apps like the BallSport mobile app would take several weeks to prototype, but things were different with the Flutter News Toolkit. It was able to get an early version of the app up and running in just a few days, largely due to the pre-built modules for account creation, content feed, data analytics, social login, and even notifications via Firebase cloud messaging.
The team were really psyched up to work with the template, given that there are so many things that had already been pre-loaded. They only need to work on the UI and then work with the APIs now to pull content. It actually saved us almost 80% of the development time when it comes to deploying the application.
We were able to launch a full-featured app, including a scrollable newsfeed, social media sharing, login, and subscription services with only 6 weeks of development work. This drove 93% higher user acquisition organically, 55% higher user activity over time, and finally, 50% growth in ad revenue. It also helped bring in a new revenue stream from subscriptions.
We are excited as a team because this mobile app is going to help us not only reach more users, but also drive up engagement, which helps us achieve our goal of bringing attention and engagement to Nigerian athletes all over the world, regardless of location and sport.
For any news publisher who wants to optimize their mobile strategies and accelerate app development, we highly recommend the Flutter News Toolkit.
It's always so great hearing from real Flutter customers benefiting from all this framework goodness. So if you want to create a news app or really just any app with lots of text and images, check out flutter.dev/news. So we just
parece
covered
como
our vertical
404.
toolkits, but beyond building an
¿En
app
dónde?
for specific industries,
El
it's
news,
just really helpful to have some sample code to get
flutter.dev/news.
started. To have best practices for things like
Todavía no
performance,
publican un artículo sobre
accessibility,
Dark
design.
Alpha.
And that's one of the reasons why we
Yo estoy
partnered with the
probando
team
en
at
el
Skinner
Darkpad.
to create Wondrous.
No lo reconoce bien.
Wondrous is a Flutter reference app that
No,
brings
vale.
the wonders of the world to life on your device. And back in August, we launched Wondrous. Since then, we've had over 25,000 installs. So I hope everyone here has it installed. Now, Wondrous is a really great example of creating your own custom designs with lots of beautiful graphics and really unique animations. But handheld devices can come in all different shapes and sizes. Apple is making these really huge iPads. Samsung has these wild phones that fall into all different postures. So it's pretty crazy, right? So today we're launching the next version of Wondrous, which features adaptive design to make sure that the app looks great on all different screen sizes. But let's take a look, right? So I have a couple of devices with me. First up, I have my Samsung Tab 8, which is a pretty big tablet. And I can swipe through the app and see these beautiful graphics, all this great imagery. And it looks really nice on this larger screen, right? But now with these tablets, we have lots of different multi-display modes. So I can drop a new app into view and see it resize. And it still looks really natural on this new format. Now let me add another one, and we'll see it resize again, looking great. Let me get rid of this one down here and make it even narrower. And still, we see that it looks beautiful, even on this really narrow screen that it's left with. So just how did G. Skinner get these graphics to look so great? Well, you may have noticed that each one of those illustrations has a bunch of different pieces that are sized differently or animated differently, depending on the size that's available. So the developer actually created this nifty little widget that consolidated a bunch of the settings that a designer would then use to make sure it looks just right. So the designers actually jumped into Flutter and tweaked these numbers on the fly using hot reload, of course. So this way they could get it just right. All right, so that was a great example of Wondrous on a tablet, but I actually have one of those crazy little foldable devices with me. It's a little bit hard to see with the code. There we go. Okay, so like I said, this looks great, but let's head over to a different screen. I'm gonna go over to this view where I can see a timeline of different events for that wonder. Here they're vertically stacked and I can scroll through. Now when I open it, I'll scroll down to that same page and we can see that we have a whole new format. Right, so this is really just two screens side by side, and we're taking advantage of that by having the imagery on the left-hand side and the scrollable events on the right-hand side. So, looks great.
Wow, todo más complejo para los frontends.
All right, so that's Wondrous. And if we could pop back to the slides, thanks. So that's Wondrous. You can install it and see all the source code at wondrous.app. All right, so, woo!
Digan, woo.
Okay, so switching gears a little, let's
Esa
move on
pantalla tiene un
from
nombre,
developer
ese es un nuevo
experience
celular que se
and focus
dobla.
on interoperability.
Sí, son los flip, ¿no?
So when I think of what makes a mobile app different from something on the
Un amigo
web,
tenía un
I
flip
think
y
of
se
things
le
like
malogró la
notifications,
parte del medio.
payments,
No
accessing
pienso
a
comprarme
user's
nunca más una de
location,
esas.
or looking at
Porque
their
cuestan un
photos.
montón. Son
There
muy
are literally
caras.
thousands of APIs, but the tricky part is
No, no
you have
tiene
to worry
sentido.
about two
Prefiero
different
comprarme un
platforms,
iPhone.
and each is written in a different language. So say I want to start tracking my daily steps in a new pedometer app. On Android, I might use the new Health Connect client. And on iOS, maybe I want to use the CM pedometer class that's part of the core motion framework. So in the past, we'd probably use method channels to call these APIs. But that can sometimes require a lot of code. So now looking forward, our vision is that you can call all these APIs directly from Dart. Woo!
Claro, ¿se refiere a cualquier
All right.
o a solo algunos métodos
So I'm
nativos?
going to show you just some of the tooling that we're working on, but just a quick note that these are experimental. So I had to write a little bit of platform code to get everything working. All right, anyways, let's go on to the code. We can head over to my MacBook. Great. So I have VS Code open. And like I said, we're working on two new tools. And what these will do is generate something called bindings that allows us to communicate with iOS or Android APIs directly from our Dart code. So to automatically generate bindings for iOS, we're going to use this tool called FFI-gen. And here I have a YAML file that handles my configuration for FFI. So I have, oops, sorry, I have a lot of devices back here. Just bear with me. All right. So here I have things like my compiler options, my Objective-C interfaces that I want to wrap around, the header files that I need to use as an entry point. And now that I have all the configurations set, I can just automatically generate these bindings by copying this command into the terminal, and this will just run FFI gen, right? So we can see that it's running, and like I said, this will auto-generate some code that basically just acts as the glue that allows us to call platform code directly from Dart. So let's quickly take a peek at the generated code. And this handles things like wrapping around different classes or methods and converting data structures, all the stuff that you don't want to have to worry about. So that was iOS, and on the Android side, things look really similar. We use this tool called JNI Gen, and it similarly has a YAML file that we use to configure it. I'm not going to generate these bindings because I've already done that. So let's open our Dart file. Like I said, we're trying to build a pedometer app, so I just created bindings for that core motion framework and also for the Health Connect client. So on Android, if I want to make an API request to the Health Connect client, I just want to send a request to aggregate my metric, like my total step count, between two timestamps. So this is Dart, and I'm just taking advantage of those bindings that we generated using JNI Gen. But you don't have to take my word for it because I have my pedometer app already installed on my phone here. So if we could just switch over to this for a second. And here we can see the total number of steps that I've taken today. I had to hand my phone in before, so I don't have that many for the past couple hours. And let me just walk around for a little bit. And it's a little hard because I have like a bajillion wires back here. But I'll just take a couple of steps. And now we'll press refresh and see it update in real time.
¿Pero es como que un stream o es un...?
All right.
Lo tengo que
So
llamar
we
la
just
función.
covered how we're trying to make it easier to access platform APIs. Now
Peler,
let's move
al
on
fin.
to our last
Uy,
thing
al
for
fin,
mobile,
por lo que
which
venimos.
is graphics performance. So like Tim mentioned before, we recently started supporting custom fragment shaders with Flutter. And it's been really fun scrolling through Twitter and seeing all the funny things that people are creating. We have glowy text, we're making it snow, we have some waves going on. Really cool stuff.
Wow, el del agua está sorprendente.
But motion graphics like these only work when you have
Pero lo ha
great
hecho
app
el equipo de
performance
Flutter,
to make it a
imagina.
smooth experience. So one feature that we're super proud of is Impeller, which, like we mentioned before, is a major rewrite of our graphics engine. For now, you can turn it on for iOS with this flag, but we're planning to turn it on by default in the next stable release, so long as
Según
you
lo
get
que
good
dicen los
feedback.
changelog,
So please give it a
solamente está
try
ubicado
and let us know what you
para
think.
iOS, para Android todavía falta.
Impeller is a multi-year
Sí.
investment, and our primary goal is to eliminate shader compilation jank and also to match or hopefully beat our current per-frame metrics. And you
Ya,
can see for
salió el
yourself
artículo
just how
de,
smooth
de,
Impeller
de
is by
Dart 3.
installing Wondrous
Ahorita.
for iOS.
¿Ah, sí?
But in some edge cases,
Pasa,
like
a ver, ahí
complex
comparo.
SVG clipping, we can see Impeller making a really huge performance difference. So let's see an example.
Demoran en publicar, la sube refrescando y refrescando su corazón.
So I have this fun little kaleidoscope app, and it has some animations that were created by clipping a whole bunch of different SVGs. So on the left-hand side, I have my build that's using Skia, which is our current default renderer. And as we're scrolling down the page, we can see that it struggles a little bit. It's only rendering at about 7 to 10 frames per second. But on the right-hand side is our build using Impeller, which looks really smooth. It's rendering at like 60 frames per second.
Sí, y ahora los haters ya no van a poder decir que hay problemas con el junk en iOS.
And Impeller and Skia are both great rendering engines that make
Pero el
different
jam ya
trade-offs.
estaba solucionado,
But
creo.
one advantage that we have because we're building from the ground up is that this new architecture can support brand new use cases. So what if we did want to do something totally new, like maybe 3D? Can we get our cool 3D logo? Ah, there we go.
Eso. Los demás no saben qué pasa en las pruebas de eso.
All right, so who wants to see me make a 3D dash painted entirely in Flutter? All right, let's give it a try. So I'll head back over to my MacBook. And I have to get my devices in order.
¿Cómo se hacía el 3D antes? ¿Por Unity? ¿Era la única forma?
So if we could just show my MacBook and my iPhone side by side. Thanks. So right now I have a pretty simple widget, or a pretty simple app rather. It just has an image widget to display a 2D version of Dash that's created from this PNG file. So nothing fancy. She's looking cute, but I really want to make her 3D. So let me go ahead and switch out this widget over here. And instead, we're going to use a scene. And scene accepts a node, which can take an asset. And in this case, my asset is going to be a model file. It's actually something called a GLB file. So I'll save that.
Do it.
Oops. And reload. And she's 3D.
¿Qué fue lo que hizo Bobby?
So she's just in this cool little light box.
Está
So we can
hermoso,
turn her
¿eh?
around and see how she's looking.
Ay, ay.
Le puso iluminación.
So that looks great, but if you're new to 3D, you're probably wondering, what is this GLB file? So this GLB file is just a pretty common way to express 3D data. And you can actually create them or edit them in different tools. This one that I'm using here is called Blender.
Oh.
So I've opened up my Dash GLB file in Blender, and here I can make changes. You know, like let's say I want to change her color. I really wish that she was, you know, hot pink. So let's go ahead and select a color down here. And I'm going to set the vertex colors. So you can see she's looking really pink now. I'm going to export this as a GLB file. Actually, let me make sure that I've saved this first. Okay, save, export, GLB. We'll save over the previous one we had.
Mandar a hacer los dash 3D ahora va a ser más chévere.
But wouldn't it be really nice if we could just
Sí.
hot reload and see 3D changes in real time?
Está mi Dash.
¿Eso en qué está? ¿En
Alright,
Drive
let's
o en
give it a
Blender?
try.
Muy bien.
Blender.
Ta-da! She's
Ok,
hot
aprender
pink.
Blender se ha dicho.
Yo escucho Blender.
She looks a little sunburned, I think, but she's been in the Nairobi sun.
El siguiente paso
Alright.
sería cambiar los colores en código, ¿no? ¿Se podrá?
So I think Dash
Debería
looks
poderse en
pretty
un momento.
nice, but
Es un SVG, creo, ¿no?
it's really cool when we
¿O
can
cómo,
add in
cómo termina el
animations.
archivo?
So I'm going to
ULB.
go ahead and add in an animation.
Imagino que sí.
These are just saved in my
Igual,
file
mira.
already.
Ah, mira.
So I just
Ah,
call
mira,
it
mira,
by
mira.
name,
Le puedes meter
which in this
animaciones.
case is walk. I'll save.
Es
Again,
como un
hot
RIP, ¿no?
reload.
O sea,
And we
en un
can see
RIP
her
puedes
walking
hacer eso.
around.
Pero en 2D,
Claro.
obviamente.
Para mobile
Pero
tiene
ya ahora va.
Blender y para web tiene acá en Basket con Watson ahora.
Ajá.
Cool.
Sería ver ese ejemplo correr en web.
But the thing
Y por ahí
is
justo estaban
that we were
preguntando si
just
WhatsApp
talking
iba
about
a, o
performance,
Flutter
so
iba
I
a
think we
soportar
need to
WhatsApp.
turn it
Sí.
up a notch,
Sí, ya
right?
va a
Instead of
soportar
just
en el
showing
siguiente,
a
cuando
single
se haga
dash,
Dash.
I think we want to show a whole bunch of dash. So I have my helper function called many
Se
nodes.
podría
And I'm
juntar
gonna
eso
wrap it around
con
my
el
node.
Flame y se puede hacer un jueguito en 3D, creo, ¿no?
Press save. Again, we'll hot reload.
Sí.
And now we have a whole bunch of dashes.
Sí.
Un
Pero se quisiera
multiverso
ver
de dashes.
It's
¿Cómo,
actually
cómo
a
ve el
cube of
rendimiento de
dashes,
eso,
7 by
teniendo
7
tanto
cubes
3D
to be
por ahí?
exact. So that's
Está basado en
343
GPU, así que sí
dashes.
va a ser
Walking
relativamente
around,
bueno.
so that means more
Si
than
eso fuese con la CPU sería
10,000
horrible.
individual joints
Ah,
that are
bueno.
Va a
being
depender del
evaluated
dispositivo
on
también.
every frame with hot
Ya.
reload.
Caliente, seguro.
Thank you, Impeller.
Claro.
Okay, so I just have one last thing to show you. I'm switching over to my new phone, and this is just an idea of the types of experiences that you can build with Flutter. Right, so everything here is painted with Flutter. We have these coins, we
¿Se
have these
imaginan
trees, we have a Flutter
que
logo. It's
la
awesome.
aplicación del Google I.O. que hacen para cuando es virtual lo hagan en una aplicación Flutter? Que ya no sea
But
en la
I
web.
did want to mention that I switched over to this different
Sería
phone.
bonita, ¿eh? Sería bonita
So
este
before
cosa.
I was on an iPhone 14, but this time I'm on an
Estaba teniendo
iPhone
porque vos
6,
te lo llevas.
which was announced back in 2014, nearly 10 years ago. All right, and that's looking forward on Flutter for mobile. Flutter for 3D coming soon. I hope you're as excited as we are.
Ya, o sea, todavía no va a estar disponible.
Great.
No, estamos haciendo unos avances, porque realmente incluso Dart 3 todavía no está disponible correctamente en el Dart.
There's so much amazing
Sí,
things
Impeller
going on
está en
here.
preview,
I wanna
así que
pay
puedes jugar nada
particular
más.
credit to the team who produced so many
bueno.
amazing demos to help us out. So let's give them one big round of applause also.
Y para Android sí falta bastante.
Pero, o sea, ¿tenían planeado
As we
sacarlo
said,
ahora
these
y
are
no
all
llegaron? ¿O
experimental.
cómo?
This is not intended to represent stuff that you can all play with right now.
No, yo creo que no, porque Android
Available,
no tiene casi nada avanzado.
the key point here
Sino
is
que
they
justo
let
en
us
el archivo de Medium que publicaron,
talk a little bit about the
agradecieron a 5 o 6 personas que comenzaron a colaborar en Impeller y en Material 3.
themes that we talked about
Y
earlier on.
gracias a esos usuarios, como que el trabajo se avanzó.
Really high performance graphics. We talked about how we're working on expanding Flutter to different directions. We've talked about new architectures that we're supporting. We've talked about how we integrate seamlessly between web and mobile. And we've talked about our focus on the developer experience. And so this slide kind of summarizes all of the different things that we've been working on.
Every day, we're inspired and honored by your support. We build Flutter with you and for you. I'm from Botswana and Ghana, so being here today it's special. Now, we want to close in recognition that our goal is to help you. And we love seeing the ways that Flutter helps to build a better world. And we want to share a story to close from Africa.
I was born and raised in the UK, but I grew up with a very strong Nigerian heritage. Nigeria is the fastest growing country in Africa. Africa is the fastest growing continent in the world, and I wanted to be part of that story.
I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. When I was 12, I saw my brother building mobile application, and it felt unreal. Like, how can someone build a mobile app?
Our mission at Clasher is to enable African consumers to access global goods and services using African currencies and money methods. When I moved back to Lagos, there was no way for me to access certain stores or marketplaces, especially from branded retailers. And I felt other people could be having this struggle as well. I started Clasher just by myself, ultimately. But eventually, over time, I started meeting people who wanted to make lives better for Africans here on the ground.
When I was 16, I had learned Android development, and I wanted to learn how to build iOS apps. I was watching YouTube. A Flutter video was recommended to me. I watched it. That was why I went for Flutter.
We actually started building version 1 of our app using Flutter because it was flexible, and it helped us to deploy the app to both the iOS and Android store just using one code base.
When I started working on the app, it was just me. So I built the app the way I wanted, and it was sent to Jess. And Jess was shocked.
Joe Steve had built the app in just 3 days. After that, he had built version 2 of the app in 2 weeks. So this just showed me how easy Flutter was for him to use.
I really like Flutter because of the features that it provides, like auto reload, a very good package repository. Communicating with native platforms is also seamless.
We have about 300,000 users using Clasher today in Nigeria. We're using Flutter, and our business is almost 2 years old, and it's going to be able to help us to grow and scale. People are using Clasher to do a multitude of different things. They're shopping from global retailers, using African currencies, and they're getting fast delivery to Africa in 7 to 10 days.
Seeing the app has now grown, it shows me that I built something that allows people to have a better experience in their day-to-day life.
We're currently going through digitization here in Africa, and more specifically in Nigeria. And Flutter will help our engineers, leaving us more time for what actually matters. Building the business logic for Clasher that actually helps solve African consumers' problems.
Great, welcome back to Ask Flutter. And hopefully some of that keynote content piqued your interest. That was very exciting to see. So if you have a question for Ask Flutter, ask your question in the live chat.
And to be honest, the keynote had so much content that we are actually going to be having a slightly shorter Ask Flutter with you all, but please do not delay in posting your questions because we will definitely be following up with you on Twitter. So for right now, another round of questions means another guest, and I think a man who needs no introduction from the Firebase team. Puff, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And are you saying that I'm wearing a name tag? I didn't have to wear?
Yeah. Hopefully folks can see it, but we have some questions here about Firebase.
Can I first ask a question?
Yeah.
You please not kick me like you did with John.
Oh. Well, I'm pretty sure you signed a waiver. Didn't you?
I'm pretty sure I did.
I will not, and we will definitely keep our distance over here. But first, why don't we get into some Firebase questions, because I know that there are many of them. First off, when will we get full support for Firebase on desktop, and more specifically on Windows?
Right, so I ask you one difficult question and you reciprocate straight away.
I can only follow with that.
That's awesome. No, it's a great question. We get this one quite regularly. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that I have a great answer that people are going to be fully satisfied with, just so you know. But to explain a bit about Firebase on Flutter with Windows support, I sort of want to give you some idea of where we come from and where we are going. Because Firebase was very early on in when Flutter wasn't even there, just Dart. We had a library from Dart that would talk to Firebase. Back then, it was just a real-time database of authentication, and a community member implemented that. And what they did is, guess what, right? They were talking to the native wire protocol. Those are not very easy. Lots of code, and I had lots of interaction with the community member about how to do all the database operations. Now, the reason I'm saying that is the Firebase SDKs are not simple. They are complex pieces of product functionality. So when we were ready to actually add many more Firebase products for Flutter, we decided to take another approach. So we decided to wrap the native SDKs that we already had for Android, iOS, and web in, you know this better than I do, what's the type of plugin that can...
Federated plugin is the word.
Federated plugins, thank you so much, John. Even I blank on words sometimes. In federated plugins, right? So that we load the native SDK and we call out from some thin layer of Dart code so that we didn't have to replicate the functionality of those SDKs in Dart, which allows us to get functionality to Flutter developers quickly. Okay, now they're not so satisfying. This worked great so far, but then Flutter expanded to a number of platforms that Firebase doesn't fully support. That's where we are today, right?
Una pregunta, ¿saben si hablaron de los isolates runs?
No han hablado nada de eso. Solamente se han dedicado como que a lo bonito, no tanto a lo técnico. Y en lo técnico solo se han enfocado en Dart 3.
O sea que no presentaron nada nuevo, solamente, por si acaso, prometemos que esto lo vamos a hacer.
Algo así.
Sí, por eso preguntaba si es que de repente no llegaron y pensaron llegar, o es como que estos eventos son definidos, o sea, cada año es como que tal fecha se hace.
No son definidos.
No es que tengan una fecha definida, pero se acostumbraba a hacerlo en diciembre, se anunciaron en octubre que no es diciembre.
Pero el principal problema de los eventos de Flutter, ahora sí puedo bajarle un poquito el video, creo, porque ya están en la parte de preguntas. El principal problema que tenía Flutter era que sus eventos siempre eran diciembre, enero o noviembre. Y en este caso, cada que llegaba el Google I.O., no había nada que presentar. Y lo único que presentaba Flutter básicamente era la villa esta virtual en la web que podías visitar cada mundito de cada tecnología de Google. Yo creería que este año se están preparando y nos presentan una parte, nos anuncian algo y ya para el Google I.O. ya van con todo.
Claro. Sí, tiene sentido.
Porque lo de Impeller se sabía que no se iba a llegar porque Android ni siquiera se ha empezado.
Lo de Dart 3
Hoy sí se ha empezado, está muy básico. Claro, Dart 3 también, por ejemplo. Entonces básicamente lo que han hecho es adelantar lo que viene a ser Material 3, tener toda la compatibilidad de Material 3, añadir nuevos widgets para iOS.
Dijeron que iban a enfocarse en Material 3.
Sí, de hecho Material 3 estaba bien retrasado porque eso lo han avanzado los dos últimos meses. Y ya Material U tiene que un año, si no me equivoco.
Lo anunciaron en el I.O. de 2021, no sé,
21, creo.
Sí.
Entonces ya ya estaban atrasados un poco por esa parte. Me imagino porque estaban centrados en el engine y en el core de Impeller, ¿no? Que eso debe ser medio pesado.
Claro, hace un tiempo, no, o sea, corrígeme si estoy mal, creo que tuvieron una entrevista, no sé si con Tim, donde hablaba de que, o sea, para este tema de la reestructuración de AI, o sea, la creación de Impeller, también estaban trabajando en dos cosas, supuestamente. Y era como que le preguntaban, ¿pero por qué trabajan en dos cosas, no? O sea, es que es porque de repente una de ellas era, o sea, la que se acabe primero, o la que funcione primero es la que iban a implementar. Una era Impeller y creo que otra, no sé cuál era. No sé si recuerdan algo así o estoy confundiendo.
No recuerdo nada así.
Okay. Pero bueno, o sea, básicamente uno era Impeller, ¿no? Y es como que ya está muy avanzado y creo que la solución por ahí. Yo esperaba algo, o sea, no, es algo que se viene comentando mucho, que es el tema de metaprogramming, pero ¿ustedes saben qué tan avanzado es eso?
No, es que metaprogramming todavía no se terminó de especificar. Está planificado en el roadmap hasta donde tiene el reporte en GitHub, pero todavía no tienen un documento en donde diga el lenguaje va a funcionar así, estas son las reglas, estas son las funciones. Cosa que sí tienen para lo que es pattern matching, para los nuevos select classes y los record types. Incluso estoy probando el Dartpad usando la versión master con Dart 3 y reconoce cómo es una función, es como cuando escribes una función que retorna un record type, pero no lo estructura al usarlo desde otra función cuando lo llamas. Entonces todavía falla. También el ejemplo de select class tampoco está funcionando en el Dartpad. Habría que ver si descargándolo en Dart en la computadora funciona. Puede que el Dartpad no esté actualizado a la última versión del master.
Claro.
Pero igual,
Pero bueno.
se siente un mal sabor al que lo anuncien y no poder probar el alfa. No encuentro documentación que me diga cómo instalar el alfa, aunque supongo que al menos con Blue debe ser fácil. Pero igual, el Dartpad también decepciona que no esté soportando lo que han presentado hoy día.
Sí, creo que veníamos muy acostumbrados a, no sé, después de estos anuncios nos poníamos a jugar con todo lo que venía.
Lo que básicamente se iba a anunciar lo presentaron ayer, o bueno, lo lanzaron ayer. Entonces ayer nos podíamos dar cuenta de que había. En Flutter, naturalmente, nuevos widgets para iOS. La opción de, por ejemplo, tú seleccionas una imagen dentro de tu aplicación y ya la puedes guardar a tu galería de fotos. Seleccionas textos, tiene lupa, seleccionas textos, tienes la opción de, por ejemplo, si seleccionas un correo, tú ya lo puedes configurar para que envíe un correo y te sale el botoncito, en vez de copiar y pegar, se aumenta un botón de enviar correo. Entonces, cosas por el estilo.
Para iOS, lo del Sliver Animated Grid, herramientas para
mejoraron el Dart Tools.
También está la lupa del texto.
Frank, mencionaste el Sliver Animation Grid, ¿eso no estaba?
Sí, lo sacaron ayer. Sliver Animated Grid. Había Sliver para lista, pero no para grid. Hola a todos los que están mandando saludos.
Hola Valeria, hola ya Martín. Por ahí te envié a ver Verde hace rato. Ya se fue Verde. Dijo, no, mejor me voy a la transmisión oficial.
Lo que me parece genial es el FI Generator y el JNI Generator.
Sí.
Eso va a hacer que los plugins sean más rápidos, menos menos tiempo perdido en comunicación entre Dart y Kotlin y Swift. Y también anunciaron que oficialmente quieren migrar todo de OGTC a Swift. Yo no sé por qué demoraron tanto en tomar esa decisión.
No sé. También mencionaron creo que eran unos widgets para noticias, algo así. Eso ya era
eso es por ejemplo, si alguien tiene una empresa de noticias, una agencia de noticias, sea un medio periodístico, te dan un SDK, o sea, es toda una plantilla de aplicación para una empresa de noticias. Incluye Google Ads y todo. Entonces, simplemente tú llenas un formulario. Soy, por ejemplo, Canal 4 y requiere una aplicación de noticias. Y luego te dan acceso al repo y tú puedes usar eso, ¿no? Entonces, una aplicación Flutter con, si no me equivoco, AdSense y con Google Pay y con el paquete de payments para que tengas suscripción, por ejemplo. Yo no te muestro publicidad y te cobro $5 al mes. Cosas por el estilo.
¿Eso lo anunciaron ahora? ¿O está en un artículo?
Lo han lanzado ahora como parte del evento, pero ya tiene par de meses. Yo apliqué, pero no me han respondido nada. ¿Alguien ha usado las funciones de NFC? No, pero creo que de acá a un tiempo va a ser muy requerido.
Hay un package para eso. Ok, mira, acá todavía en el language funnel de Dart, pattern matching y related features todavía está siendo implementado, pues por eso que todavía no lo lanzaron estable. Luego, lo que hiciste de metaprogramación, confirmado, sigue estando en proceso
En
de
desarrollo.
No, ni siquiera está haciendo desarrollos, sino está siendo especificado.
Ah, ok. No, entonces yo creo que eso tiene todavía para rato. Incluso ni siquiera para el Google I.O.
No, ni siquiera para Google I.O. Para el próximo año, tal vez.
Sí. ¿Tú crees que lancen Impeller solo para ellos? Tampoco, ¿no? No tendría sentido.
Ok, acá está. Ahorita lo que están trabajando son 4 cosas. El pattern matching, o algo que se llama promoción de campos privados. El otro es Type Capability Modifiers, que no lo he revisado. Y espérate. Este es Type Capability Modifiers, creo que son los views. No, también tiene que ver con pattern matching, por lo visto.
Dame un segundo, yo tengo que salir. Tengo que ir a recoger algo, voy y vengo.
El último que están trabajando son los inline classes. No sé si vieron el ejemplo de pattern matching donde tenían los seeded class. Están creando una serie de modificadores a las clases y uno de ellos es el inline, que es básicamente para definir una clase en un fragmento de código para no crearlo como una clase, sino que si tienes una función, dentro creas una clase con un formato y lo usas ahí, en ese scope.
Ya, qué interesante.
Muchas veces no necesitas que un tipo de datos sea global, porque luego tienes que hacerlo privado.
Sí. ¿Qué más cosas han salido?
No sé, bueno.
O sea,
no han aportado mucho esta vez. Solamente seguimos trabajando en esto.
Sí, como que este Flutter Forward como que... O sea, creo que tenía mucha expectativa, o sea, la expectativa estaba muy alta para mí para esto.
Sí.
¿Han probado o sea, la aplicación que sacaron, la de lo que utiliza, creo que realidad aumentada, con TensorFlow?
No, todavía no. O sea, lo único que he estado probando es la de la web que tenía embebido a la aplicación.
¿El Dash? Esta, a ver, ahí lo...
La que presionó un botón de device y de lo que estaba normal se inclinó envuelto en un celular.
Ya, es lo que está explicando.
Te pasé el link por interno para que lo pongas en los comentarios.
Sí. O sea, yo me refiero al Hollow Boot. A ver, ahí les pasé.
Yeah, for sure.
Estoy viendo también.
Lo has pasado por el... ¿Este?
Sí, o sea, sí, para que todos lo prueben, pues, ¿no? Claro.
Yo lo he probado ayer, pero no me reconoce mi cámara.
O sea, la del celular, porque la de la compu, sí.
No, la compu no me reconoce.
Yo ahorita estoy moviendo mi
probarlo.
cara. Sí, o sea, sí reconoce mi cara. Sí, interesante.
No, parece que no reconoce la mía.
A ver. Ahora, vamos a ver si es que puedo poner mi cámara también.
Siento que está lenta esta aplicación.
Bueno, creo que terminó, ¿o qué dijeron?
Sí, es que básicamente es el keynote es lo importante. El resto son solo tutoriales para explicar a detalle las cosas que podrías leer en documentación.
Creo que es todo, ¿no? Sí, todo.
Sí, bueno, conclusiones, o sea, ¿a ustedes qué les pareció? A mí me quedé un poco para ahí, como dicen, ¿saben? Con mal sabor de boca, pero igual, nada, genial, o sea, por lo que viene, ¿no?
Sí, queda el sabor, además boca de que no hay nada palpable que probar. O sea, por ejemplo, si hubieran presentado los Isolate Run, que son importantes, y el API de Isolate Spawn no es tan agradable. El Isolate Run lo hace agradable. Es como pasar de callbacks a promesas en JavaScript. Lo otro que podrían haber anunciado, bueno, al haberse esforzado más en cómo uno puede probar la beta de Dart, con o sin Flutter.
Claro.
Sí, creo que han presentado cosas que ya existían. Firebase.
O sea, lo último, yo creo, de Flutter, como que lo de Impeller, lo de 3D, o sea, por ahí, o sea, no es como que algo que yo sabía que iba a venir, ¿no? Creo que eso me sorprendió un poquito, pero bueno, podemos probarlo, así que, bueno, no sé, y esperar, ¿no? Cuando lo harán, porque no han dado fecha, ¿o sí? O sea, dijeron como que esto va a salir tal fecha, ¿no?
No, yo no he escuchado.
Pero no han dicho fecha para nada de estas cosas. Solo han dicho
¿Cómo
estamos
viene para el Google I.O., como decía Pierre?
Probablemente, a ver si llega. A ver si salen más contribuidores anónimos que ayuden a acelerar eso. Ahí, que Frank ahí sube un par de PRs ahí para acelerar la cosa.
Ahorita ando más en Rust que en Dart.
Claro.
El WebAssembly. Se demoraron mucho en sacar WebAssembly con Dart.
Así. Pero, o sea, ellos lo venden como que Flutter es como que las primeras que tiene esta integración. ¿Es tan cierto eso?
Los primeros frameworks multiplataforma, pero Rust ya lo tiene desde hace tiempo. Tiene bastantes frameworks que son multi-UI. La cuestión es que no son tan agradables de programar como es en Flutter.
¿A qué te refieres con multi-UI?
Por ejemplo, existen frameworks en Flutter, en Rust, que te permite, o sea, mejor dicho, Flutter no es un framework mobile, es un framework multi-UI, y eso lo dijeron en el Google I.O. de 2019. Puedes programar y te centras más en la UI que en la plataforma en la que estás. Y tienes algunos widgets y algunas cosas como los Preferred Channels o los JS Interoperable para poder conectarte con la plataforma en ciertas cosas específicas, pero en general son tan pocas veces las que vas a usarlo comparado con el resto de cosas que gran parte del código es utilizable. Ahí se llama multi-UI.
Ok. Interesante.
Entonces, el Rust tiene bastantes frameworks, o sea, ninguno suficientemente maduro como Flutter en el sentido de la comunidad, pero tiene bastantes frameworks suficientemente buenos para eso.
Claro. Bueno, esperar el Google I.O. entonces. ¿Cuándo es el Google I.O.?
En junio, creo. Junio, julio. Por esas fechas es.
El Google I.O. suele ser en mayo.
En
aproximadamente el 8 de mayo.
Ok. Solo algo que me quedó de la duda, esto del element embedding, o sea, que era como que meter Flutter ahí en una web, ¿eso ya está o también era como que próximamente?
No creo que eso sea una funcionalidad per se, sino es una demo de lo que puedes hacer con creatividad, porque algo así yo ya he hecho antes. Yo para poder tener un test visual de la UI que hacía para diferentes temas, diferentes tamaños, yo generaba una pantalla, no de la aplicación, sino una aplicación paralela, en donde yo primero creaba un paquete de componentes de UI, luego una aplicación paralela, donde como es un paquete, puedes crear un example, esa es mi aplicación paralela, en donde creo un layout y pongo todos los componentes y sus configuraciones para poder testearlos visualmente. Entonces, cualquier cosa que quiero editar sobre un componente o widget y sus diferentes configuraciones por tamaños, colores, tema, lo hago ahí, pongo todas sus variantes y no tengo que estar testeando cada rato en el celular, porque si no tendría que entrar 10 pantallas para un widget y si es un widget con estado me toca hacer for reload y voy a hacer 10 pantallas, no tiene sentido. Entonces, creando una aplicación donde tengo solamente eso, puedo tener como mi catálogo de widgets y eso es como una documentación de qué widgets están implementados y qué funcionalidades son soportadas.
Claro, o sea, en realidad lo que yo me refiero, o sea, por lo general es, por ejemplo, si viene un cliente a mí y me ha pasado, ¿no? O sea, es como que tengo una web y quiero añadirle este modulito, pero, o sea, no tiene sentido de que, o sea, yo le dije, puedo trabajar con Flutter, entonces como que puedo embeber Flutter, es como que con un iframe y todo eso. Ahora, hasta ahí bien, ¿no? Porque es como que el iframe de Flutter lo puedo mantener independiente. Lo que no sé o no he investigado es o sea, como que puedo pivotear la información. Es como que se produce algún evento ahí en mi iframe de Flutter y puedo hacer reaccionar el resto de la web, ¿no? O sea, eso es mi duda. O sea, ¿eso se puede hacer actualmente o era como que algo nuevo que anunciaron?
No, sí se puede desde ese tiempo. Ah, pero espérate, ¿la parte de afuera era JavaScript y la parte de adentro era Flutter?
Claro.
Ah, no, sí, eso sí es nuevo.
Claro, eso me refería, ¿no? O sea, como que ahora es como que esa limitante de que solo tengo mi cuadradito Flutter y es lo que te ofrezco, es como que me da un poco más de libertad normalmente de ofrecérselo a clientes. Okay. Bueno, igual toca revisar los artículos, ¿no?
Sí.
Para ver exactamente si es que está o no está. Y ese también creo que es un punto malo porque es como que, bueno, de repente no lo entendí muy bien, pero para mí no quedaron muy claro como que esto está o no está. Creo que hubo un punto en el que dijeron estos son los futuros avances, ¿no? Pero por ahí como que me perdí un poco. Ok. Bueno, entonces, ya terminó el evento. No sé si es que tienen algún punto más que comentar, sino para cerrar la transmisión.
No, creo que ya cerramos. También tengo que ir a trabajar.
Bueno, tenemos que trabajar, muchachos. Bueno, chicos, muchas gracias a todos por estar. Gracias, Frank, Gonza, Pierre, y a los que se quedaron hasta el final. Muchas gracias. Estamos viéndonos. Cuídense.
Gracias a todos.
Chao, chao.
Nos vemos en el siguiente evento.